What is up, guys? Welcome to another video. Hope that you guys are all doing good. In this video, we're going to break down the state of DC. But before we start this video, do not forget to, of course, like, comment, and share because it helps us out in the glorious algorithm. Let's press play.
I think that James Gunn's DCU has already failed. I think that this is a non-starter and that WB still will not have the MCU that they always wanted to have, and that I think it's only a matter of time now before somebody, let's say Paramount buys WB, decides to give James Gunn the boot after seeing all of the numbers. And in fact, I think that DC as a brand in terms of its movies and TV right now is in a worse spot than it was before James Gunn came on.
So I think we're scraping at the bottom of the barrel right now for directors, and it just, you can see it in the movies, you can see it in the TV series, and you can see it because he has released Peacemaker and Superman, and both of those two projects flopped. So I don't know.
Now, all of this is going to get the James Gunn's fanboys very, very angry at me declaring this, but I don't care because I've come to realize that it doesn't matter what James Gunn does or what fails in the new DC universe, they will never accept that there have ever been any mistakes along the way. But yeah, I am going to defend myself. Why would I come to the conclusion that James Gunn's DCU has already failed? And no matter what the media says about James Gunn and the success of Superman and DCU, why it's just DOA right now. It's just dead. Well, let me explain. First of all, James Gunn was just the worst person to helm DC. That has always been my opinion. Now, I know I have some unpopular opinions where I'm not as big a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies as other people are. The only one I really like is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but yeah, I've never seen James Gunn to be the brilliant mastermind when it comes to directing like people think he is. His greatest successes were under Marvel, and since doing Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like that's all he knows how to do, and that's all that he brings to these DC movies. But anyway, James Gunn does those Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but he has a very abrasive personality behind the scenes, had some very awful things that he said in the past, particularly these jokes.
Thank you very much, because no one talks about this. I do not understand why we're having a P word as the head of DC. Honestly, I do not get that, because if it was anybody else, that person would have been fired. Just imagine having a P word as the head of DC. And I know that you guys are going to go into the comment section right now and criticize me for this. But for me, it's like this, right? If you're making jokes like that, what does that say about you? And this is on your free time. You're not a comedian. You're just tweeting weird shit like that about kids. That's what you're doing in your free time. So that says a lot about you. And I also want to add this as well, right? All of the people which are protecting James Gunn, I want you guys to now protect him. When we're having this conversation about him being a P word, now go into the comment section and protect him. Because that says a lot about you, that you can't even protect the kids. You can't even do that. When he's joking, like, that shit is the worst thing that you can do to kids. We all have to agree that we have to protect kids. So sometimes I read the comment section, right? And there are people that are defending this man. If anybody else did this, that person would have been canceled. If it was anybody else, that person would have been canceled to oblivion. That's almost like having P. Diddy directing DC. Let's get P. Diddy to be the head of DC and to direct DC movies. Isn't that a bit weird? I don't know, like, I've been reading some of the comments and I'm just like, it shocks me that there are people which are defending his behavior. Condemn it. Say, no, I do not agree with James Gunn. That was wrong of him to tweet that. At least say that. But I've got people in the comment section right now which are defending him. And those people, they don't want to put their names out there either. They just want to defend James Gunn. That means that they agree with him. If you're defending him, you agree with him. If that's your friend, which does all of that shit, then of course you agree with him.
Jokes towards little kids and, just a bad attitude in general towards people as seen in other videos and stuff. And he had a bad attitude interacting with people, which is what wound up getting him canceled in the first place because people were trying to get revenge on him after he was picking fights. But anyway, with all that, he eventually comes back to DC, a new man, I guess. For a while there, doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and the Suicide Squad, he was acting a lot nicer and, much more cordial with people as he is constantly online and constantly interacting with people. His first year as DC head was 4 movies flopping at the box office, 4 movies that he couldn't save. So yeah, that was that. But the excuse at the time was these were movies that he didn't greenlight. They just had to get him out of the way. Once James Gunn gets on...
And I agree with them there because he had nothing to do with those movies. Yes, he came in with his creative input, but that doesn't really say anything about him being the head of DC. It doesn't.
Once James Gunn gets on board with everything, things will be a whole lot better, right? Well, they're not. Now, here's the thing. In order to make an interconnected universe, an interconnected franchise that everyone is enjoying and everyone is on board, and no matter what they say at WB, they still want that MCU level franchise. But James Gunn, his first call of what to do at DC was to create a show called Creature Commandos, a hard R-rated animated show about a team of misfits who teams up together and has to do a mission. It's the same thing as Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was the same thing that he did with the Suicide Squad.
The whole reason why we brought James Gunn in is because they felt like Snyder wasn't bringing in the views. Even though he was the greatest during Snyder's period or during Snyder's reign, he brought in the most money. So I don't get it. They wanted more. They became greedy and selfish. And when Snyder's daughter died, that is when you guys decided to kick him out.
And it's the same thing he's doing now. Now, Creature Commandos came out, and nobody watched it, really, and I wouldn't expect people to. It's a hard R-rated show based on obscure DC characters, but James Gunn was saying that this was the first project in this new DC universe that he wanted everyone on board with. But, oh well, okay, so he did one project that was self-indulgent for himself and not really for anyone other than his niche of fans. Fine, fair enough. Let's go over to Superman, a movie that, I gotta tell you guys, whenever James Gunn comes out with a new project, and he's done this with Peacemaker, with the Suicide Squad, and with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, he does it with every one of his new projects. He always says it's his favorite thing that he's ever made. He didn't say that about Superman. In fact, he said that his favorite project in DC hadn't been announced yet. And so Superman is the one movie that he deflected away from calling it his favorite project. Why? Because James Gunn, with a character like Superman, he is ill-fitted for that character. James Gunn is a person who likes obscure characters from comic books and edgy humor from 10 years ago. Superman, this hopeful character that is supposed to be innocent and is supposed to be appealing to everyone, is not a character for...
It's because all of these obscure characters, no one really has a expectation when it comes to those characters. That is the reason why. If you make films about obscure characters, no one is really that emotionally invested. So you can do whatever you want. And that is what James Gunn has figured out. Because the truth is like this, right? It's a win-win. If he makes a Guardians of the Galaxy and it flops, then he can always blame it on that, oh, it's these obscure characters, no one really cares about them. But if a Guardians of the Galaxy becomes successful, then he can take all of the credit for it.
So James Gunn comes out with his Superman movie, and he fills it up with another team of Guardians of the Galaxy-esque characters, and it still cannot escape his style of humor, even though it was toned back for this movie. But Superman comes out, and it's terrible. And the thing about it is that it's still got a great reception on Rotten Tomatoes. But if you actually look beyond Rotten Tomatoes, if you actually look at the kinds of videos that regular people have made about the movie, then the movie didn't work for a whole lot of people out there. But that's another thing about James Gunn, is he has to be involved with everything. David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan did a better job marketing this movie than James Gunn. So Superman comes out and it actually isn't good. It isn't good, and a lot of people agree with that. The whole thing around this movie is that it needed to be good for so many reasons. And so there's this weird defense around the movie. A defense is where I feel like some of that praise that it got from the Rotten Tomatoes critics doesn't even feel genuine, because I feel like people needed this movie to be good so badly. But the mental gymnastics went on about how the movie was doing great at the box office, even though it's not. We are still in a day and age when movies can go $1 billion plus if people like. This movie didn't even beat Man of Steel at the box office, and there has been so much cope around it. It absolutely tanked internationally, a fact that Gunn blamed on the character being too American, even though he made sure that those elements were removed from the character. It just doesn't make any sense. They put it out on digital like barely a month after it released, and we're still trying to claim that it was a big success. The cope around it, though, was that, oh, they must have been so pleased about how this movie was doing at the box office, they decided that they had made enough money, so they took it out of theaters. What company does that? What company would take a movie out of theaters because it was doing well and just decide, hey, we've made enough, we can go home? This is absurd. Warner Brothers is in debt. You don't think that they would want to make as much money as they could? Not to mention it was also put on streaming very, very early. I guess testament to how well it was doing at the box office. But James Gunn's excuse for Superman and why it went on VOD so early was, it was because of Peacemaker. Yeah. Peacemaker, the hard R-rated show that was a part of the original DC universe that no one watched, and James Gunn tried to claim that it was very highly watched, but we had no actual evidence because HBO Max was not on Nielsen ratings yet, so James Gunn could claim whatever he wants. The reason why James Gunn got canceled in the first place, and I'm not saying that he should have been canceled or that he should have lost his job over this, but I'm saying the reason why he wound up in controversy was old tweets about, old tweets that were PDF-philia adjacent. A lot of these jokes, or not even adjacent, right into it. But, other things that people had found out about behind the scenes, like his list of top 10 most blankable female superheroes, a list that included Jubilee, a teenage character who he acknowledged as a teenage character in his list, saying that I was told that James Gunn was gone, and that's in the past, and he's reformed now, and he's not like that anymore. Except for James Gunn is the same person that he's always been. He still has that style of humor. He's just careful about putting it in shows where it's appropriate, where it's appropriate to make those kind of jokes given what the show is, and where he doesn't go far enough with it to get himself canceled. Like, it's still who he is now in these personality on social media, this very abrasive, condescending, mean personality where he is constantly...
I do not understand why people don't just want to point out this fact. If your girlfriend cheats on you once, do you think that she's going to do it again? So let's bring it back to James Gunn. If he did it once, this is the only time that we caught him. Meaning that, bro, he is that. He's a pedesty. That's what he is. He's a Pedro. That's what he is. And he has always been a Pedro. We just caught him this time. But those are my thoughts when it comes to all of this. Do not forget to, of course, like, comment, and share. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.